You're listening to a Speech Therapy PD podcast. Earn 0.1 ASHA CEUs for this episode by completing the accompanying course online at speechtherapypd.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SpeechLink podcast. Today, feeding and swallowing, the process of making meal times meaningful. And I'm so excited that Carolyn's here. I just love this topic. And before we begin, let's cover disclosures regarding Carolyn's financial disclosures. In addition to receiving an honorarium for this podcast, she's also the host of the popular speechtherapypd.com podcast, School of Speech. She also receives compensation for providing dysphagia support services for school districts, teaches graduate courses at the University of Houston, and is the owner of Bite Size Consulting. Non-financially, Carolyn is a member of the Texas Speech and Hearing Association Task Force on Swallowing and Feeding. Personally, I too receive an honorarium for this podcast, and I'm a regular seminar presenter for speechtherapypd.com, and I own Speech Dynamics, Inc. I have no non-financial disclosures. Okay. Well, so happy that you all are here for our SpeechLink podcast, sponsored, of course, by Speech Therapy PD. And I'm Char Boshart, your speech-language pathologist host. Carolyn Dolby, MS, CCC-SLP, specializes in pediatric feeding and swallowing assessments and interventions for students in the public school system. In her prior experience as a clinician, she served populations across the lifespan in medical, in-home, and private practice settings. Also, as mentioned earlier, here on speechtherapypd.com, she hosts School of Speech, a popular podcast dedicated to empowering school-based SLPs through evidence-based practices, essential conversations, and practical strategies to enhance student outcomes. In addition, she teaches graduate-level courses to prepare the next generation of school-based dysphagia providers. Love that. And through her private practice, Bite-Sized Advice, she provides consultation services and dysphagia support nationwide. Carolyn is an internationally recognized speaker and published author and is known for her engaging presentations that emphasize dynamic, student-centered dysphagia services. Welcome to the Speech Link, Carolyn.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super happy. I am all about all things feeding and swallowing all day, every day.
Yes. All day, probably 24 hours a day.
Yes. My office is literally the cafeteria.
I love it. Well,
And
we
my car.
And your car, I'm sure of that. Yeah, I remember those days. So we are zeroing in on pediatric feeding and swallowing, and also parents and caregivers. So it might be helpful, as we get started here, just to begin with a description of the characteristics or the types of students that we're going to be focusing on.
Exactly. So, just to be clear, I'm focusing on students in our public school systems that require, and I'm using that word intentionally, specialized supports in order to truly have a seat at the table. These are, I know, I love them. I teach, treat, and train, and I always have a catchy name.
Teach, treat, and train. I love that.
Yeah, what I do.
I love that.
So that's going to come. I'm going to come back to having a seat at the table, because that is something I really been thinking about. A nice framework for today.
Yes.
These are students that need structured, individualized supports in order to eat safely, efficiently throughout the day, because students need to be able to consume enough food and drink enough fluids to stay hydrated and nourished. But we can't forget the side of they also need to be able to participate socially with their peers. So today we are talking about those students that cannot eat safely or comfortably without support. Because if they don't have these supports, their health is at risk. What am I talking about? Health, I'm talking about choking, aspiration, undernutrition, dehydration, and some other underlying health issues that happen when children are not well nourished and hydrated. Our little body our kids' little body, our body, really, when we're not properly fueled, we don't have the energy or the stamina. And I mean, we know what hangry feels like. Our kids can't always articulate the word hangry, but it sure does come out in a lot of behaviors, right?
Mhm.
Our kids need to be able to focus. They need their attention. They need to be regulated in order to really benefit from their education and participate meaningfully. So it's not about preference. It's about safety, access, and the ability to learn. And it's really, I know it's getting better out there in the world, but I still hear from different states and different SLPs when I'm all over the country saying, oh, we don't do feeding and swallowing in the schools. And I'm gobsmacked because what's happening with these children? Well, I'm finding out that these children sometimes have abbreviated days. They are missing a lot of school. They're uh, um, they're getting ill in response to not being well nourished, and then that really is on us, right? I know.
It
So
compounds.
it really is.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really is an issue, and so understanding the challenges that these students face is the first step. Is understanding that eating isn't easy for everybody. Like for us, okay, I talk about it like this. There's two types of eaters. There's the eater that, like us, we live to eat. Like, I think we are vacation eaters. So, like, think about when you're on vacation and there you are at the breakfast table and you're all excited for your day and you're eating breakfast and all you're talking about is all the things you're going to eat at lunch. Right? I mean, like, you're eating and excited to eat again. We just live to eat. It's so social. It's so traditional.
Yeah.
It's love. It's, it's what, it's cultural. It's such a part of our lives. And then there's the other types of feeders that eat only to live. Right? And those are two. The third one is the one that we're generally working with, which it's even more that neither of those. They would rather not because something's not working. Something in their body is not working, and therefore, so I'm going to say this. If I say behavioral, I won't mean it because I don't think that children are choosing to not eat just out of behavior. There's something not working in their bodies, and we just have to be better at understanding it. And so what I was thinking about today is like, it's such a broad thing, and I could talk ad nauseum about this, and I would love to, but but I needed to focus in. I thought I wanted to do kind of a practical roadmap, if you will. We kind of talked about those 4 mindsets we kind of talked about. So
Right.
I thought about those mindsets. And of course, catchy name, I teach, treat, and train. So I teach our procedures in my districts. I treat feeding and swallowing disorders, and I train anyone who will listen.
Right. Good. Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
So
Good.
when I'm thinking about kids, all kids deserve to have a seat at the table. So I thought that I would break down my mindset into the word seat, because every child deserves a seat at the table. So the S is going to stand for school-based purpose. The E is going to stand for engaged participation. A is going to be the one we're going to talk a lot about, authentic family partnership. And then the T, the training and systems change that we need. Yes.
Okay. All right. And so you're going to bring in the family piece
Yes.
in there and contrasting the school-based services, contrasting it with home base, in-home training or in-home feeding and swallowing therapy. You're going to do all that for us.
I promise you I am.
Right. Okay. All right. So you want to start with number one. What was number one again?
School-based purpose.
Okay. All right.
And that's
go.
where we have to start, because we need to understand why feeding and swallowing services is essential to learning, to participation, and in progress. And safe feeding is really directly related to educational access. Because if you think about throughout a child's day, they are going into the lunchrooms, they have snack time, there's classroom celebrations, there's food-related school activities going through throughout the days. There's some science classes are working on food. Some math manipulatives are food. Food is on, but some we're using food because it's motivating. There's so many of us that live to eat, so we add food, but that's not great for everybody. So
Okay. So you're talking as far as those characteristics about the young children, like
Nope.
very young children, or you're talking throughout
Oh, no, I'm talking from 3 to 22.
3 to 22?
Yeah.
Okay.
Most
Okay.
of the kids that are sitting in our classrooms, and we want to keep them there.
Right.
These are kids in our public schools. And so, you know what? Thank you for that. Let me touch on that a little bit, because
Well, I'm just thinking that the food piece would be probably more for the really young children, but as they get into they get older, into the more advanced grades, the food is not going to be as readily inside the classroom. But I don't know. I haven't been in the schools in a couple of years.
I'm glad you said that, because this is an aha moment I've had with my secondary pupils.
Okay.
When you have a student that only eats chicken nuggets,
Right.
they are 17 years old, they're wanting to get a job, and they're going to possibly have work luncheons, work dinners, going on a date even. Think about that, and going out into the restaurants. And
Right.
right? I mean, this is
Yeah.
so I do focus on what schools have to do, but this is really, it's a life skill for all of us. And so the reason we are in school, right, is to prepare them to be active participants in the world, right?
Right.
Get a job. And if a student has such a limited diet, that's really going to affect socially. It can affect their career, you know?
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's definitely going to affect their nutrition.
Right. And
I mean, among other things. Yes. Yeah.
and I want to bring it back to when we're looking at like what we are charged with in schools, right?
Right.
We need to offer FAPE, right? So IDEA and FAPE. So that free and appropriate public education.
Right.
And the reason we have that is that we need to have inclusive educational practices, helping students to participate across the school environment. And then why do we have transition in secondary? Or starting at as young as, I think it's 12 years old, we start talking about transition. When they transition out of public school or their school and go into the community, we are still responsible. So we need to bolster their ability to be social and fit and have that energy as well. And a lot of times I think people are like, oh, but this is so medical. Well, no, it's not. I could go into law and stuff, but I don't want to bore you ad nauseum on that. So let me just say one thing, and then I won't do the law stuff. But so we all know, if you're school-based, I'm assuming we're school-based listeners or maybe clinicians. No,
Right.
maybe clinicians. I hope I have some clinicians out there. If you are working with school-based, school-aged children, this can also help you understand the difference. And I'm going to talk about that too, what you can do in clinic versus what we can do in the schools.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to hit that.
Okay.
So, and then you will have some great words to arm your families in going to the schools too, because um, while IDA might not specifically um, name dysphagia or feeding and swallowing, I use those kind of interchangeably. It does mandate support for health-related disorders that will directly affect education.
Right.
And it does, if you think about feeding and swallowing, will actually result in health issues that can limit school attendance. Okay, so if a student is not attending school, they are not accessing the curriculum, which is impeding their socialization and participation. So we could ultimately not be denying FAPE because we aren't providing those supports in order for them to be at school. I mean, it's pretty heavy stuff. But it doesn't have to be heavy. It can be fun, just like I make it fun. I make it fun. But I do bring the seriousness to it and why we do.
Now, there is a responsibility there that we need to speak up for those kids.
100%. Because a lot of the kids don't have their own voice. They're not good at advocating for themselves. Most of mine are pretty impacted by their disabilities, and so so they need somebody to advocate for them. And that's what, yeah.
Okay.
So, kind of when we think, so my first mindset is the school-based purpose, right?
Right.
And the purpose of school-based is to be making feeding and swallowing, the interventions, to be central to the school-based purpose.
Okay.
Okay. Now, can I flip it for a minute and talk about what school-based services are not?
Sure.
Okay. I know. All right. I know.
I'm trying to think about that one.
And you're like, where is Carolyn going to go?
Where's she going?
Okay. So this is the biggest scare question that districts get. And this is why I think they dig their heels in and say, we don't do feeding. They always say we don't do feeding in schools, because this is the question they get. Are schools required to provide feeding therapy? And do you want to know the straight answer? No. What? Okay, hold on. I know I've got a lot of people sitting up in their chairs ready to fight me, but hold on. So when you think about what feeding therapy is and the way it's delivered, it is a family-centered service that is done in the home and in private clinics and in hospitals. Okay? That's kind of the traditional thought of what feeding therapy is. Okay?
Okay.
But I, Carolyn Dolby, come from a place of yes, always. And I will always find a yes to that request. So I said no to y'all because you're your fellow clinicians and my peers. I never say no to a parent. So I had to find a way to kind of shape that, because to make it palatable and understand for the parents. And that's what I want to talk about, is how to really bridge what's
Before you move on, I know the schools are very, they don't want to be sued. Are they thinking about safety?
Yes.
Is that why that is
So-
required?
Well, okay.
Smart services, they don't want to have to.
Now, the thing is, we do feeding supports. It's just that when you think of a clinic-based feeding therapy where we're expanding a diet because they don't like broccoli, we're talking about a child that wants to eat broccoli but can't eat broccoli. Okay. Now, to say that, so this might clear it up. This is how these are quotes, because this is in the words of Carolyn Dolby. What I say is that we do provide feeding and swallowing services to all students that require feeding and swallowing intervention in order to maintain safety. Safety is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Facilitate efficiency through shaping positive behaviors. I know I hate that word, but there it is. And improve swallowing function while fostering feeding independence. So
Okay.
yeah, indeed we do. But I think districts and clinicians get scared when they think that they're going to be, having a food handler, doing. We don't have. Okay, I know I'm being cheeky. What I'm about to say is we're not Burger King. You can't have it your way in a school. We don't have the food. We don't have kitchens. We don't. I mean, some of us do, but we globally do not. And ovens and microwaves and all of that. So we have to work within our system.
Right.
Right? So, but there's so much we can do. We just need to be realistic with the families that this is not, because I need the families to be going for feeding therapy because there's something maladaptive also in that scenario. And they need the support. But yes, there's so much we can do in schools. And so yes, school-based
That covered in number 2. Are we moving toward this?
I think so.
Okay.
Because yes, we are, because number 2 was engaged participation.
There you
Because
go.
mealtimes is more than nutrition, right? It's social, it's cultural, it's developmental, right? Students should be able to participate confidently, not just survive a meal, not just get through it, not just get through the day. We need our children and our students to safely join their peers. If they're not able to eat with their peers, then they're missing tons of communication opportunities, a ton of connection and belonging. And that's huge. And so we need to make sure that we are building skills. So we are needing to build skills so that they are able to eat with their peers,
Right.
self-regulate, and problem solve.
Okay. Give me a couple of examples, if you would, before we move off of 2.
Okay. All right. So, okay. I'll give you, this is a good one. I had a student that actually did not have a problem with chewing and swallowing. Oh, this is ideal. Okay. No, could. But was very anxious in the cafeteria. Like, they just going into the cafeteria is so loud, and it was just challenging because just the noise, the pace, and also because they had an adult over them all the time with directions, and they were so dysregulated sensory-wise. It was overload, and so they would either overstuff and try to get out, eat really fast and get out of there, or I'm not really hungry, just ate a little bit, right? And what would happen is they were not getting enough to eat because they would avoid it or eat really fast, but they would eat maybe one thing and try to get out of there. And for this kiddo, they ended up having absences because they were just not able to have the stamina to make it through the day. And because they were so dysregulated, after coming out of the cafeteria, they could not get themselves regulated to be ready for class.
Okay. What do you do
Well,
in that situation?
yeah. Okay. So we have to set the table for success is what we need to do.
Okay.
And you can make some really tiny little tweaks that are huge for the first, like at first, why do they have to sit at that table? Why do they have to sit at that table? They can sit at any table they want. Maybe there's a little alcove or somewhere they can still be in the cafeteria, but somewhere a little tucked away.
Okay.
Right? They don't have to sit in where all of that is crazy. Maybe they can come in a little earlier to get their lunch so they're not,
There you go.
right? Oh,
There
my
you go.
right? And the big one I find I have to work with the staff is do not be over them. Do not, let them be. Because a lot of times the adult might be like, okay, bite, make sure you eat, too much adult attention is is blocking them from socializing. Another one that works great for so many different reasons is in the cafeteria, let them have their snack, not their full meal. And then at snack, they can have their meal. And
Oh,
right? That
okay.
way they can sit and chat with their friends and they're having fun and they can do their thing. And all they're needing to do is eat their snack and drink a little drink. But then
Okay.
they can have their main meal during snack time in the classroom.
Okay. Okay. So you're making accommodations.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. I'm getting the picture.
Yeah. And so now the child is able to meaningfully connect with their peers, and they're not, lunchtime should be where they get a break from adults telling them what to do all the day.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So, yeah.
Good.
We also need to support the whole child too, because another thing is there's a lot of judgy people out there. And why is it that our children that receive special designed instruction, that receive supports through special education, are held to a higher standard of food? Like what? Yeah. I've gotten referral. They bring a waffle and a ding dong and whatever they bring every day for lunch. Or they eat chicken nuggets at breakfast. I'm like, food is food is food. We're looking at the big picture. So we need to often not be judgy on what we're feeding, because sometimes parents know their kid. And this is where we're going to get into, actually, let's get into authentic family partnership. Because families play a critical role here, because let's say that child is bringing a waffle every day and pretzels and goldfish, right?
Right.
But then you're talking to the parent, and they're like, well, those are their safe foods. At home, we're eating all sorts of things. Then we're okay, right? But if we were judgy to that kid, and we're shaming them for what they're eating, that's horrible. That just breaks my heart. So we really need, families are so important. And so we have to build authentic family partnerships, because they know their kids best. And when we are thinking about feeding and swallowing, think about if you are a mother or a father, if you have children yourself, think about how important it is that you feed your child. Like, I was so proud that I was able to feed my baby, right? And food is not just food, it's culture. Like, I think I said that culture, it's tradition. And different people eat differently in different cultures.
Yes. We need to touch
so-
upon that too.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
wanna-
important.
Yeah, I want to remind me about that, because there is a story
Okay.
in hand feeding.
Okay.
Right. Families bring their own mealtime routines, their expectations, what they eat, how they eat, when they eat it, and kind of like even what independence looks like in different families. So it's really important to get your parents on board without like, you have to be careful, because you never want to shame anyone. And we're getting into cultural responsiveness. Is understand cultures, understand that different cultures eat differently, and foods are different, and that's a big one for me, because I just remember I love to eat international foods, and I just remember back 20 years ago or more, it's been a while, in when I was in Texas, and I would go and open my lunch, and someone would say, "Ooh, what is that?" And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm so ashamed. I'm like, it's hummus, or it's a falafel, it just makes you it doesn't make you feel good. So we have to build and bolster the family relations with, and honor what they're bringing, and love that. Right. Because not everybody wants to, not everybody wants to eat the school cafeteria food. My daughter never did. Never did. And the second part is eating from the school cafeteria isn't part of the curriculum. And so we got to be mindful. We have to be careful to talk to parents about this.
Okay.
This is where it's sneaky, y'all. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. This is where I know. So hopefully this will be a nugget for you.
Yes.
We, when, because food scarcity is real, and there's a big disproportionately with there's poverty, and I get it. We gotta tread lightly because school cafeterias have to provide food, but you don't have to eat it. And having a student eat what's from the cafeteria is not part of the curriculum. So it's a touchy one that you really have to work with families with is and find ways to and one way I do is I say, let's sit down, because it would be great if you just said, oh, I'm going to send you the menu and you just circle what they like. I used to do that all the time until I realized, oh, they don't know what that is. They might not know what that meal is, right?
Mhm.
So sitting down with them and talking to them about each of the foods and say they're not, oh, and the days may change. So we have to know that. And really talking to the families about, okay, this is what is, I'm brain dead right now, like a meal, but you would think everyone might know what a chicken nugget is, but not everybody knows what chicken fingers are.
Okay.
What is that? So just talking through, okay, and talking about what protein does your child like? How can we work with the proteins that we have on the line? How can we make that closer to what proteins you eat?
Okay. Good. Good idea.
Yeah. And
So you're talking about parent interaction, and is this something that you're recommending, interacting with the parent verbally on a fairly consistent or regular basis, or are you emailing back and forth? I mean, how close do you get to the parents? I would think that you would be fairly close. But what are you talking here?
well, it's not okay. Here's the thing. It's not just me. Even though for my district, I am the feeding and swallowing specialist for the whole district.
Mhm.
But it's not just me. So yes, I'm district support, but every single school has a dysphagia team. They don't realize it. So I do remind them every year. And then they go, oh yeah, of course. So like everybody's on the team. The case manager, the teacher, sometimes they have a closer relationship already with the
Okay.
families, and so I go through them. But
Amen.
but usually the teacher will say, oh, they'll let them know and be like, oh my gosh, okay, Carolyn wants to talk to you. She's the head of feeding and swallowing, but she's really funny, or she's really fun and she wants to talk to you. And then they'll like do the introduction, and then I can relate. And then I find like talking with them is best. And it's hard because there's a lot of language barriers and having to get an interpreter. But in today's world, we have a lot more at our fingertips, especially like over the phone and getting a phone interpreter. I just find that when you talk directly with the family in their language, that you're breaking down some barriers, that there's less misunderstanding, and you can come to some really good, solid partnerships. Because there's a lot of misunderstanding that can happen. Think about like you get an email and you're like, and you're thinking, then there's a bold or an exclamation or a word. You're like, what are they saying? Versus when you're talking to somebody, I don't know. It's more authentic to me.
Yeah.
And letting the families know that I want to know what works for you in your household. Tell me what your mealtime looks like. I once said, because I go to campuses, and I was talking to one parent, and I said, I do all things feeding and swallowing. I will go anywhere, anytime for anyone. And she's like, oh, do you want to come for dinner on Thursday? And I was, yeah, there you go. I was like, you know what? I kind of do. I couldn't, but I mean, I totally did. You right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that she felt comfortable to have someone allow you into their house is huge.
Yes. Yes.
I felt like win for me. But what's also really important is to know what their meal times do look like at home. because some meals at home take 45 minutes to an hour and a half, right? Maybe the way that they in some cultures, hand feeding is culturally, and it's a show of love. And like a 30-year-old will go home and his grandma will hand feed him. It just gives me chills. I just love it. Like he's a 30-year-old grown man, professional, and being fed by grandma is love. So I have to just tell stories like that to remind people that, and yes, we have to shape that and tell them, okay, that one was a little bit far. But when we have a kid come in that's not feeding themselves and we find that mom feeds him, and then we need to shape that. But so when a parent says, I hand feed him one-on-one, and we take an hour and a half and whatever, just a bunch of stuff, and they're wanting to have, and this is real, like parents might come in and give you a whole laundry list of things they want to do. Okay, what I want you to do is I don't want you to dismiss it. I want you to be curious and start asking, okay, what part of the routine is essential? Like what is it that you really are wanting? Because, and then I talk about how the classrooms or the cafeteria setup is, and how important going to recesses and not missing academic instruction is. And I say we might not be able to replicate everything that you do at home, but when you start understanding the why that they do certain things, we can start collaborating and creating a school plan that is going to protect safety, respect cultures, but still be realistic within the system.
Mhm.
So authentic partnership is not about accepting everything they're asking for. It's about being transparent about what is really doable. Not because we don't have staff. That's not a reason to not do something. But be transparent on the fact that, well, on Thursdays all we have is, we have pizza, and if that's something that the student does not like, please send in a meal. Now, if they can't eat it because of allergies, that's a whole nother thing.
Okay.
Right.
Now, I know I have heard you say, and this kind of feeds into it, and we also have a question.
Oh,
I have heard you say when parents feel understood, they begin to trust. And that kind of encompasses what you're saying.
mm-hmm.
We do have a question here, and this is kind of along the same lines, or at least similar. In that example you gave, do you think only an SLP can provide that type of support, or any provider like teacher or OT, et cetera, which I think you've been talking about that? And then you also, here's another part of her question. Can you give an example of how you would treat dysphagia / texture aversion in the school? So this is a very specific question.
Yes, and then I
Kind of diverts from the parent, but I'm going to say it crosses over. Because
ain't
you're having the
scared.
same type of issues.
Ain't scared of that question.
Okay.
Here it is. Okay. I'm an SLP. Yes, that is my discipline. But and because the two districts I have worked at, huge districts, one in Texas, one in Oregon, now they've made these positions for me where I work at the district level and I support all the school-based teams.
Nice.
Right? And so nobody wants to feel siloed or alone. So I do the heavy lifting. I'm doing the critical thinking. I'm sussing out the issues. And I'm the liaison between, I'm the conduit, right? But yes, OTs and we work hand in hand. Teachers, paraprofessionals, families, admin. I am talking to everybody because everybody's on board. Everybody needs to know what to do and how to do it.
Right.
And yes, we treat texture aversion in the schools, and we can. And not the way we could in a clinic, because we don't always have foods available. But sometimes we have to be we have to be clever and we think about, okay, SLPs in the schools, we don't say, oh, I am going to do this type of therapy and name a brand of therapy. Okay. We don't do that. We do therapy and we take things like, I wouldn't say, oh, I'm going to come in and do vital stuff. No, well, first of all, we can't do it. But we don't do a named therapy. So, but straight up, I do food chaining. I do some SOS. I do things from AEIOU. I do it all, right? I do clean everything. So texture aversion is not that easy because what do they ever do? There's so many textures aversion. Okay, so for example, let's say they are stuck on purees only, and they need to have a puree diet. Well, so what you can, okay, it's tough when you don't. Well, two ways you can do that. One, you ask the parent to send in the puree if they're sending foods, right? Send in puree and then send some that's less pureed, right? And then
Okay.
yeah, and then you can slowly add a little bit. And I'm working with the staff on doing that. In schools, if we're pureeing their food for them and we're preparing that, do the same thing.
Right.
Like right? That one, you know what? I think I copped off on that one. That was an easy one. So you're probably talking like if the student is really I had a student. Okay, here we go. Had a student that only ate rice. Only ate this a rice dish from home, super spicy. But each dish had different things in it though. But it was rice. It had different meats each time, tons of vegetables, but the vegetables and the meat were really ground small.
Okay.
Right. And she did that, and she drank Sunny D, and that was it. Well, I was in the and I did that. Typically, we wouldn't think anything of it, but like in pre-K, no one thought much of it because she wasn't there all day. But when she went to kindergarten, they realized she brought it for breakfast and she brought it for lunch and she brought it for snack. That's when they brought me in. I went, ooh. And so this is when the stars aligned. I was there on a day that they were making a food in the classroom. They were making something called banana bites, where you cut up bananas, you dip them in chocolate, and you roll them in Rice Krispies. I can't make this up. It was just beautiful. And so I was like, I'll say T. Her name was T. I'm like, you like rice? I said, do you see those over there? She was making it. She had no trouble making it, but she was not going to, right? Said, you eat rice? Do you know?
Yeah.
These are Rice Krispies. Okay, so she went for a handful. Okay. No. I was like, whoa, no. You think, because if she would have done that, she would have been, you liar. That's not rice, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
no. But I showed her rice and I said, this is puff rice. They're made out of the same thing. They're a little bit different. And then we squished it and we tried it. And next thing you know, she was eating it. But okay. So,
Good.
right. So I find little ways to do that. So,
Yes.
right. Another child that had another issue with really textures only wanted like breads. It was slow, but we worked with, and when I say me, I'm not me. I say we as the whole team. We're coming up with ideas. Is that he went through the line and chose some foods that took some time, and then being able to move it to his plate without stress about eating it. And then he loved this bread from mom, and we used his bread from mom as the spoon to pick up something similar on his bread. And that there's so many ways. It really depends. Every kid is different. I think that's why I love the job, because I love to puzzle. I'm a puzzler. And I want to figure out. So I'm always looking at you. That's why you have to have these partnerships with parents to tell me everything they eat. Everything.
Yeah. It's a good idea.
Right?
Good idea.
Because
Yeah. Okay. I love it. Okay, good. Okay, we kind of got off of our 4.
I know.
We did 1 and 2, 3.
Well, yeah, 1, 2, 3 was the authentic family partnership, and that is
Okay.
a lot
We've
of
kind of been in that. Okay. And then the fourth one is?
Is the T of SEAT. So SEAT. So T was the training and systems change. So it's so important in this part is that everybody needs to be trained and on board, right?
Oh boy.
And yeah, and schools need to have procedures, protocols in place, and training for the staff so that safe eating is consistent.
Okay, well, I just need to clone you. How do we do that?
Right?
Figure out a way.
Well, here's how I do it.
Okay.
I put together a video. It's about 10 minutes, and it's just a general informational video about what is feeding and swallowing, what is dysphagia, what are the red flags, I went just a 10-minute video that is now mandatory for everybody in the district. When I first started, I used to go to all the schools and do it in person. That was exhausting, but it was really good for me because I went to a campus once and they said, "Oh, we don't have anybody here that have feeding and swallowing difficulties." And I went through my presentation and the teacher was like, "Oh, you got 3 to refer you to." So not that I'm trying to get more on my caseload, but
Yeah.
so I guess my point with the training and systems change is when you start training and talking about it, it comes to light that oh, yes. And then when you train the staff, because sometimes you get some kickback as the staff doesn't want to do something more. And I said, I'm actually not asking you to do something more. I'm wanting to write a plan on what you're actually doing and giving you credit for doing it. And then they're like, oh, okay. So just like I do with parents, I do it with the staff. So parents, I listen. I am curious. I am non-judgy. I keep I try to be charmingly disarming, but authentic, not so sweetly, because they can't. No one wants that. But I am goofy by nature, so that does come out. But I do this with the staff as well, so that that they're comfortable and they're willing to listen, because when anybody is dysregulated, you can't listen and you can't participate and you don't have a meaningful mealtime. Right? And so training is really important. So I do a general training, but then I write safe eating plans that are realistic for the school. And that's what I train on specifically. So this went full circle back to the students that we're talking about. We're talking about the students that require a safe eating plan. They require accommodations. And I have found that you could put it in just as an accommodation like cut solids, but that is not as you don't get the fidelity of that application as much as you do when you have a safe eating plan all written out and you train on it and you talk about why, if you don't do it, it can happen. What can happen if you don't do it. So I do safe eating plans, and that's what I talk about. And again, remember, I want family input, but it's a balance. It's not family directed.
Okay.
It's collaborated. We're all coming to the table. We're all, because we have to, we want to not say no. We want to say yes and be curious and really understand what they're asking for. So I have 8 building blocks that I use when I do my dysphagia plans or my safe eating plans. And I train the staff on exactly what I'm looking for and how I build it. And then I train on how to do it. And then when I'm talking to parents, sometimes I get this sometimes, that a parent brings in a note from the doctor that says my student needs a one-on-one adult for meal times. And I thank you. I'll take that under consideration. See, I'm cheeky behind the scenes. But then I start asking, like, what is this really like? Because when I start doing scenarios like, if you were a parent of multiples, let's say you had triplets, are you taking one triplet, putting them in a room by themselves and feeding them all by themselves? Or are you feeding three? And they're like, okay, so I want to know the why behind that, because I think a lot of parents are nervous. They're anxious. And so all I need to do is start asking, what are you wanting? If you're wanting a one-on-one, and then when I'm sussing out what they're concerned about, like they're concerned, concerns are real. Concerns of choking, concerns of okay. There are reasons we do have a one-on-one. But then when I talk about what is one-on-one, that means that there is somebody attached to their hip and they are focused on them for the entire time. That's one-on-one.
Yeah.
Right? Versus line of sight, right? Or in a small group, and when I am curious and finding out what the parents are anxious about or what they're wanting to make sure that we can do, then we get on board with what we can do and what's realistic in the schools. And so, yeah, that's a big one, because all parents want one-on-one, but that's not realistic. Some students absolutely need it, but it's not realistic. So I'm very careful on, when in the district I came from, I was there for 22 years. And it was a huge district, huge, 120,000 students.
Were you in Harris? Where were you?
I was in Cy-Fair. And you know how students had one-on-one? 5 out of my 350.
Wow.
Because they truly needed one-on-one. Now, this is not to say that students might need one-on-one for another reason, and that's something different. So, like, if it's a medical thing that G-tubes, okay, yeah. But I'm really looking, because I'm so glad I remember something I wanted to say, and I know we're getting where we are. Is this safe feeding plans are to be first for safety first. That is our first step, right? But our goal is to get them off the safe feeding plan. Like, they shouldn't be static. Yeah. Our goal is to get them off the plan. Off.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So
That's your
initially,
starting point. Yes, I gotcha.
so it is okay, even if you're starting with a parent, maybe a very anxious parent, but you let them know that, sometimes I give a little bit, because you know what? If you give a little bit, you're going to get, right? You're going to get back. So, and you talk about and show progress and stuff. And I show them, I built a hierarchy of supervision and where we start and why we're looping, and how I train staff on what that looks like on, one-on-one. But that, if they're a dependent feeder, they're an aspiration risk, they have a G-tube, lots of things, they have seizures, they're not able, there's reasons you have one-on-one. But even within that, let's look at where we can back off and give them some independence, and make sure that they're social. Parents love to hear that their child's making progress, as long as they're still safe. We maintain safe, but we want to shape skill. We want to build skill. So if they're a dependent feeder, we want to make sure they have a spoon in their hand if they can hold it. That's why I'm working with OTs so closely. That I could be the feeder, the facilitator could be feeding. They could maybe be working on trying. And that's wonderful. Or maybe that they need help with utensil use, but they can finger feed while you're doing that. And all the time that you have to make sure that they're sitting with their peers as well. Right?
Okay.
Which brings us to the environment. And yes, I would love everybody, you know what? I would love that cafeterias were dim lit with soft romantic music and soft comfy chairs. They're not. They're giant ant farms with right? So
little ants.
Yeah,
They're in there for 3 minutes and they run out to the play yard. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we need to be conscious of that as well, that sometimes a student might not be the best environment for them, but I do want them to work towards that, because students need to be in restaurants, in communities. So we're talking with parents, like, if with parents, it's like we want to work them towards the cafeteria when we can, as we can, so that they can go to Thanksgiving dinner at grandma's. I mean, we're doing it for school, but it's also benefiting the parents too.
Right.
Another thing that I want to make sure that I talk about when I'm doing my safe feeding plans is, not only am I talking about their dietary modifications, and if I have time, I'll come back to that, but the one I really want to talk about, because really what we're talking about is partnering with parents, is that I do put dietary restrictions on their plan. And this is what I mean. So if you went to the nurse and you said, I need you to put in a health alert that this student cannot have pork, the nurse is going to say, I need a doctor's order that states that they have a severe allergic reaction to pork in order for me to do an alert on that student. And they're not wrong. That is true, right? But the student might not be allergic to pork, but their family does not eat pork for maybe faith reasons, cultural reasons. I will put that on their safe feeding plan, and I do share that with the cafeteria, right? Because a lot of our children don't have their own voice. I think I said that before. So I want to honor the families that are asking that we don't do pork, or eat kosher, or are vegetarian or are vegan. Okay, now
Right.
here's the flip. There's two sides to every story, right? So yes, I put it on there, and a lot of times we can probably look through the menu and on that day of what we can do, because this isn't an allergy, right? But I do tell parents that, in the district I am, our meat is not kosher, but I look and see these things, but like our yogurt is in my district. So that works. And so, no, we don't have to provide specific meals, but we are going to do our darndest to make sure that we get a good meal. And that's where I'm partnering with the parents and saying, this is for today. Make sure that you augment it with something else to make sure that they have enough nutrition.
Right. Good. Okay. We do have another question there. She says, where do you get the information to inform a safe feeding plan, like a modified barium and so on, or fees, skilled observation?
Generally me. So, I'm going to do a shameless plug. I'm Dixon to do another webinar with speech therapy on conducting school-based feeding and swallowing evaluations.
Okay,
But
good.
that is what I do now. So thank you, Janice, actually, for saying that, because this is something that I hear in districts, that they require families. They bring their child in and they require the family to show proof that the child can eat. Do we do that with every child walking through the door? No, we sure do not. Okay. So, parents do not have to prove that their child can eat, nor should we ask for a modified barium swallow study in order for us to feel like we can feed this child. And that throws people up. Now, when I come and do, so yes, I'm doing the I don't call it evaluation. I'm doing an observation and an assessment, and I'm talking to parents, and I'm wanting to get medical because if the student is on, like, I understand if we have oropharyngeal dysphagia and they're not protecting their airway and they do need thickened liquids, yes, I want that information. I've built that relationship with the family, but I don't enforce a modified in order for me to write a safe eating plan, because that's a moment in time and it's not showing me how are they sitting in a chair? How are they using utensils? How are they procuring the food? How are they chewing? Well, you can get that in a little bit, but not a lot. Really, the modified is when you are suspecting airway, penetration, or you're suspecting complications and they're not protecting their airway.
Right.
So I do the assessments. Yeah. So
Okay.
question.
Good. Yes. Thank you. I wish we had more time. I mean, my question is, here I am, I'm an SLP in the schools. Where do I start? And I think I heard you say that you're going to be doing a course that kind of addresses that. Like, what do we do?
I just did one on interventions with my with a colleague, Margarita. We just did interventions, and we are going to be
January
doing,
10.
yeah,
Got
we're
it.
going to be doing one on interventions. On assessments soon.
Okay.
But I mean, I also I know when you look at CEUs that you need to get for your license, I do everything. Every single feeding swallowing one I can, like when I go to ASHA or when I would go to TISHA, I go to all of them. And those are the ones I listen to because I wanted to keep my craft up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, the one on January 10 was entitled Advancing School-Based Feeding and Swallowing and Intervention Masterclass, and it was 4 hours. So I'm thinking that, everybody might want to check that one out. So
Yeah, so that was a good one. And
yes, it was. Okay, good. Well, I'd like to close, but oh my gosh, Carolyn, you are a wealth of information. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I feel like we just scratched the surface, but I did get a lot of other extra information that I didn't know or that I didn't think about. So, but thank you.
one thing I do want to say is I am honest. I am authentic when I say email me if you have a question. I had somebody that listened to me on on that masterclass and email me and I will talk through situations with you. I can't give you a clinical judgment per se because I haven't seen the kid, but I definitely give you some suggestions and help you through because I will collaborate again with anyone anytime.
Wonderful. I love it. Thank you. In
Thank you.
closing, yes, I want to thank everybody, all of you, for being here, for tuning in, for continuing to get the word out about the SpeechLink podcast. You probably know this already, but you will be able to access this course through speechtherapypd.com, and you can watch it again. Also, I would recommend doing that. There was a lot here. Also, if you so desire, you can access the audio-only version on most popular podcast apps. And thanks so much for your supportive comments and your good reviews in the apps. I appreciate it. Carolyn, you and your expertise are so greatly appreciated. And to all of you, I hope you realize how important you are. Thank you for all that you do for your therapy clients. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Remember to visit speechtherapypd.com to earn 0.1 ASHA CEUs for this episode and to see our library of over 1,400 courses for all things SLP.